I think one of the essential books that anyone who's like going through higher education right now, either college or university, should pick up is Allan Bloom's is The Closing of the American Mind. I mean, he well, he names examples of American universities, but all Western universities apply. And I believe in that book he makes arguments that the move away from the core curriculum or of the liberal arts and the move to specialized subjects have let students be unmoored. And contemporary, recent criticism, which I think Bloom would add to if he lived to this day, is that um, the Ivy League schools, from what I've heard, been uh, was it moving their objectives into training future political activists rather than good American citizen. So you you produce a great number of what disillusioned and disaffected, indebted, of course, um, well, professionals with a very unmoored knowledge of, well, the American creed, of course, and the Western canon, and basically they contribute to the all the political, hubbub that we see to this day. Um, so, of course, I find Hillsdale to be one of those remedies for it. And let's take a look at one reason why, and that is your free course in philosophy, Introduction to Western Philosophy. I'm glad you mentioned Robert George, by the way. He's a great Thomist, which is a follower of Thomas Aquinas, as well as a great constitutionalist. And we've
And a great
started,
banjo player.
of course, and we begun this conversation talking about Thomas Aquinas, specifically that painting of yours. And well, going through the philosophy course, I believe you spend the most time discussing him and the philosophy of natural law. But let's not get ahead of ourselves because, well, I thought of asking you why we should study, well, Western philosophy, but instead, a better question would be, well, you started the course by not discussing a piece of philosophy, but a work of art that is by the great Renaissance painter and one of the Ninja Turtles, Raphael, and that is the School of Athens. And so perhaps to answer the question of why should we study Western philosophy, do explain the significance of that particular great painting.
Yeah. So just to back up for a moment, I appreciated you mentioning Bloom's book, and I could digress on that for a while, but I did want to let you know that that book was a very pivotal book for me as an undergraduate in college. I was uh, ill the summer of my junior year. I was on a trajectory. I'd changed my major 3 or 4 times. At that point, I was in social studies, secondary education, bored out of my mind by the kind of almost infantile methodological emphases and you could already see the kind of progressive ideological biases in the way it was taught. But I was sick over the summer, and my mother got the audio book of The Closed American Mind, which she maybe listened to the first 2 audio cassettes. If your audience knows what those are, they'll have to go back and look, but they're on audio cassettes. And so I was sick. I listened to the entire book in bed, recovering, and that was just a life changer for me. That awakened in me a kind of deep desire to know that world that he was talking about. It's a remarkable prophetic book, and he's such a talented writer. And while one could criticize things in it, it has proven itself even more so now than in 1986, 87 when he wrote it. It's pretty much what we have seen today with the identity politics and woke and the woke social justice movement. Bloom is already anticipating so much of that and seeing the dangers there. So just wanted to point that out. Raphael's painting, The School of Athens. Well, I use that in part because if your readers or viewers here want, they should. I encourage them to go do a Google search and look it up if they've never looked at it. Raphael is really trying to capture the entire Western intellectual tradition in that painting, and it's fun trying to identify who the various philosophers are, their poses, the conversations they're having. But at the very center of that painting are Plato and Aristotle having an argument, and there's a sort of arch behind them, framing them. And I like to point out that Plato, when I teach my course, the students want to get in arguments over who's better, Plato or Aristotle. And one of the points here is that the Western philosophical tradition is not just a monolithic subservience, dogmatic subservience to things that people say. It's characterized by a very live, extended argument through time. It's not just preserving corpses. What's amazing is how alive and even electrifying these thinkers are. And right there in the middle of the School of Athens, clearly Plato and Aristotle are arguing with each other. And Plato's, pointing up to the forms, and Aristotle has his hand out. It's not clear if he's pointing down or if he's pointing to something between a hylomorphic hand point, if you will. But they're clearly discussing some matter of metaphysics and ethics. Aristotle is actually carrying his Nicomachean Ethics in his hand. So that's wonderful to see that conversation happen. In the video, in my class, as you know, I describe that as when my students want to argue about Plato and Aristotle, I say that's like arguing whether you'd rather have one eye rather than two eyes. And what the two eyes give you different, they have slightly different visual fields. They show you different things. And our brain is able to sort of integrate those two eyes into a kind of stereoscopic vision, which gives us depth perception. And that's what I think, in a way of thinking about Plato and Aristotle. What I did not say in my class is that if you go to the Raphael room, Raphael did 4 paintings. He was commissioned to do 4 paintings. This room is just in the vestibule, if you will, to the Sistine Chapel, where another Ninja Turtle is doing his own work of art, his own thing on the ceiling, Michelangelo. But in the Raphael room, just opposite the School of Athens, is another painting, which is also one of my favorites, called a Disputatio. It's a disputation on the Eucharist. And you've got a bunch of parent theologians looking up at a monstrance, a Holy Eucharist, and a monstrance up on an altar, and they're clearly just trying to figure out what is going on here. And I think to understand the Western philosophical tradition, you need both of those paintings. You need the world of faith, as that has been elaborated through the Christian tradition, and the world of philosophy that you see in the School of Athens. So I don't think in the course that I talked about the disputation, I can't talk about everything and had to cut out a lot, but I wanted to tell your audience that when you mentioned Aquinas, and Aquinas exemplifies the very best of this tradition, in the sense that Christianity is a very singular religion, in the sense that it wants to see a basic harmony between the claims of faith and the claims of reason, and to see them not reduced one to the other, but holding one another in a kind of almost like a Gothic cathedral being kind of buttressed and held up to point us upwards to something beautiful. So I thought that would be good for your readers to know that.